Long before the rise of archaic and classical Greece, there existed in Crete and on some Aegean islands a mysterious civilization, the Minoan civilization. Known for its huge palaces built around a central court with vibrant frescoes, beautiful decorated pottery, and refined and delicate artifacts. That civilization had an elusive script that remained undeciphered since its discovery at the beginning of the 20th century. It is Minoan Linear A. In this series, we'll explore what we know about Linear A and the continuous quest to unlock its mysteries. I welcome you to join me as I present my decipherment of Minoan Linear A. I should like to start this episode with an appeal to scholars in Minoan and Mycenaean studies on the one hand, and to scholars in Hurrian studies on the other, including the Assyriologists and Hittitologists who inevitably have to deal with Hurrian as part of their studies, to admit and acknowledge that the texts on the Minoan Libation Tables are part of the legacy of the Hurrian civilization and religion, and that a new field of research has been added to their studies. The material presented here is, of course, only a small part of the whole range of evidence of the decipherment of Minoan Linear A. That entails the accounting tablets, with mainly lists of Hurrian personal names, but also theonyms, toponyms, ethnics, transaction terms, and other inscribed objects such as the gold signet ring found in the necropolis of Mavros Piliou near the palace of Knossos, with a complete Hurrian sentence and a clear Hurrian connection with the names of heroes in Homer's Iliad. That will be the subject of one of the next episodes. Of course, I'm very grateful to all people who have congratulated me with the decipherment of Minoan Linear A. But for a worldwide acceptance of the decipherment, solid academic reviews by scholars in the pertinent fields are required, emphasizing the decisive arguments why the decipherment of 2022 shows that the idiom of Minoan Linear A can't be anything else than Hurrian, and that the Minoan civilization was part of the Hurrian civilization, leaving its marks on the Mycenaean and later Greek civilization, religion, and epic legacy. I am well aware of the fact that the many failing attempts to decipher Minoan Linear A as Greek, Hittite, Luwian, Akkadian, West Semitic, and even more recently Chattic have caused a lot of skepticism towards anybody engaging in an attempt to decipher that script. But it is time for all serious linguists in the field to shrug off their doubts and to say goodbye to all the dilettanti who have partly taken over the field that seems to have been abandoned by those who are able to make a well-grounded judgment. There's also another matter at stake. It is the responsibility of scholars to preserve the integrity of scholarship and to keep away from professional jealousy and animosity. One can perhaps understand that people who have expressed different ideas about the identity of the idiom of Minoan Linear A find it difficult to admit that they have been wrong. Indeed, one needs some courage to admit such a thing. But it is in the interest of science that they step forward as well. Of course, all scholars can find an excuse in their daily routine that they have their own obligations towards their own disciplines that prevents them from carrying out a task that science evidently requires from scholars, if a major achievement is accomplished in their field. I can promise that the task of evaluating and reviewing the results of more than 12 years of meticulous linguistic, epigraphic, philological, and historical research will be rewarding. I have only counted the years of continuous research after my retirement in 2012, not the years of research in the 80s pursued for my Sheffield PhD thesis. There's a lot to win, since the decipherment opens up a new area of research for Minoan and Mycenaean studies, and for Hurrian studies as well. For next to Hurrian texts in syllabic and alphabetic cuneiform, there are now also Hurrian texts written with Minoan Linear A. This may be compared with the advance of Luwian studies, where hieroglyphic Luwian, formerly called hieroglyphic Hittite, has been added to the cuneiform Luwian texts as a new source. I can start with sending the links for downloading my 2 ebooks that comprise the main text of the Decipherment of Minoan Linear A, Volume 1, Parts 1 to 2, to those who are considering to write an academic review. They can message me through the platform of Academia Edu. If they are seriously willing to write an academic review, I can order publishing platform Ingram Spark to send them the printed series of 8 books, circa 4,100 pages, Ingram Spark 2022, as well. Incidentally, my former series of 4 books on Minoan Linear A, Amsterdam 2016, largely based on my Sheffield PhD thesis, is completely superseded by the new series of 8 books. In episode 2 of my podcast series on the decipherment of Minoan Linear A, we have discussed the prayers to the gods, particularly to the Holy Trinity of Teshub, the Hurrian Stormgod and head of the Hurrian pantheon, his wife Hebat, and their son Sharruma, described with their poetic epithets. We have seen that these prayers mainly occur on the stone libation tables and other sacred objects found in the peak sanctuaries all over Crete. I shall also present my new identification of a Linear A sequence on a marble ladle from Trullos, not published before. It sheds light on the specific roles of these gods with regard to bringing life and childbirth. The Linear A evidence completely corresponds with cuneiform evidence from Hattusha and Emar. In the last episode, we have concluded that in all 4 cases where the poetic epithets of the 3 gods are mentioned together, they are always mentioned in the same order of importance. IOZA 2 Ata Iovaya Ya Dikitu Yasasarame from Juchtas. PKZA 11 Ata Iovaye Adikitete Asasarame from Petsovas. PKZA 12 Ata Iovaya Adikite Gap Rame from Petsovas. A limestone libation table from Knossos, KNZA 18, is, according to Jacques Raison and Maurice Pope, 1994, apparently rediscovered in a collection of sherds from Knossos, and according to Godard and Olivier, Gorilla 4, from the Villa Ariadne. The reading by Raison Pope is KNZA 18, from left to right, gap, gap, ya, word divider keda, gap, ya, word divider yava, gap. We have seen that the text suddenly makes sense if it is read from right to left. Gap, vaya, word divider ya, gap, dake, word divider ya, which I have completed as follows on the basis of comparison with other texts. Ata iovaya, ya di dake, yasa sarame. The only substantial conjecture with regard to the missing sign in ya, gap, dake was my addition of di, so that the second sequence reads ya di dake, that can be analyzed as ya as di dake, as well as the woman is beautiful, the beautiful woman. If this conjecture is correct, the only differences between Linear A, ya di dake, KNZA 18, and adi dakiti, KNZC 6.2, on a Middle Minoan 3 inscribed clay cup from the Palace of Knossos, are that adi dakiti, analyzed as Hurrian asdi dakiti, the woman is a beauty, contains the substantive noun dakiti, beauty, and misses the quasi-proclitic comparative connective particle ya ye, as well as, whereas ya di dake contains the particle and offers the adjective dake, beautiful, splendid, shining, bright, pure, epithet of the goddess Hebat. To the observer in the 21st century, it may look like a contradiction that dakidu, takidu, can at the same time be an epithet of Hebat and be a goddess in her own right in the entourage of Hebat, in the rock sanctuary of Yatsilikaya near Hattusha. However, one may actually realize that it is a characteristic of polytheistic religions that there can be more than only one truth with regard to the identity of gods and the narratives about them. We have seen in episode 2 of this podcast series that our Lord and our Father are epithets of Teshub in column 4, line 118 of the Tushratta letter EA24. Nevertheless, Eniatani, God the Father, appears in the top of some lists of Hurrian divinities at Ugarit, Rosh Shamra, and it doesn't seem to bother the pious faithful that Teshub appears in the same lists. Alani, the lady, can be epithet of Hebat and Savushka. But she can also be a goddess in her own right, as one of the deities in the nether world, comparable with Persephone in Greek religion. The nominal Hurrian root dak, tak, tak, dek, dek, beautiful, splendid, shining, bright, pure, shows both dental and palatal allophones. For instance, I nu me usguni sigala gisma takima kirasima. As the silver is pure, brilliant and beautiful, and long-lasting, at Hatusha. Hurrian inu, just as, is an independent particle or conjunction at the beginning of a sentence or phrase. It is often connected with absolutive pronominal enclitics such as Old Hurrian me, he, she, it, or Hurrian na, ni, ne. He, she, it, or la, le, le. They. The enclitic connective particle ma, man, means and but even. The nominal root dak, tak, tak, dek, tek was known before one realized that it could also be verbal. The transitive verbal root means to make beautiful and the intransitive to be beautiful. The common root frequently occurs in Hurrian sentence names, not only written with cuneiform, but also with Linear A. For instance, 5 nodules from Ayatriada, HTWA 1001-2005, show the Linear A inscription Daka that can be identified with a Hurrian personal name from Mari, Taka, written Ta-ak-ka. He, the boy, is beautiful. Or if the final A is explained as essive of nominal taki, daki, taka. He, the boy, is born like a beauty. In my view, the dental and palatal occlusives in Linear A daka are both voiced, daka, although that is not certain for the palatal stop. As argued before, the Linear A K signs can probably be transliterated as K, G, initial voiceless velar fricative G, or intervocalic voiceless velar fricative with double writing G. The phonetic values can be compared with those of the Linear B K signs that can be transliterated as syllabic signs with kappa, gamma, and chi. If the reading of Linear A da-ki, HT6B5, on a tablet from Ayatriada is correct, we may conclude that this name is indeed a popular Hurrian name, which is not surprising in view of its meaning. It can be interpreted as either a nominal I stem analyzed as da-ki, beautiful, or as a transitive imperative name da-ki, make the child beautiful, O God. The Linear A inscription da-ku, SEZF1, is the only entry on a bronze double axe bought by Sir Arthur Evans at Crete, near Lato, but reported to be from Selakunos, or rather Selakanos. Since final consonants were not expressed in Linear A and B, Linear A daku can be interpreted as either the Hurrian personal name Daku, Taku, 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 or Dakun, Takun, Dakun, Takun. At Nutsi, names of 7 men are attested sub Taku, written Ta-ak-ku, Ta-a-ku, Ta-ku, Ta-gu, Tak-ku. See Nutsi personal names. The Hurrian name Tagun, written Ta-ku-un, occurs at Alalach. See D.J. Wiseman, the Alalach tablets, and an Drafkorn, Hurrians and Hurrian in at Alalach. Phonologically, it may well be Dakun. The meaning of the N suffix was not yet known at the time of N. Drafkorn. According to Ilse Wegner and Thomas Richter, Old Hurrian Dakun is the shortened form of Dakuna. Regular suffix na, optional allomorphic ni, and shortened n are the enclitic personal pronoun third person singular that marks the object of transitive dak. So the name can be interpreted as he, she, a god, made him, her, namely the child, beautiful, or as imperative, make him, her, the child, beautiful, O God. It is also the shortened form of Linear A and Hurrian Dakuna, HT 103-4, on a tablet from Ayatriada, analysis Dakuna, with the same meaning. An exact equivalent to the name is found in the Cappadocian name Dakuna, see Emmanuel Laroche, Les Noms des Hittites, 171, number 1217, and in the Hurrian name Taguna from Mari. J. M. Sasson, Hurrians and Hurrian Names in the Mari texts, Ugarit-Forschungen 6, 1974, mentions the name twice. Linear A Dakuna, HT 103-4, precedes Dakushene, HT 103-4-5. It is surprising that Cyrus H. Gordon, Evidence for the Minoan Language, Ventnor, New Jersey, 1966, who published several articles on Hurrian, was so preoccupied with his attempt to prove that Linear A recorded West Semitic that he identified Linear A Dakushene, HT 103-2 and HT 103-4-5, as Hurrian, but failed to recognize the same Hurrian root dak in Dakuna, HT 103-4, and stated, "It is hard to tell whether Dakuna is a personal or a divine name. In any case, it is to be compared etymologically with the West Semitic Dakon, worshipped by the Philistines and Ugarithians." He interpreted Dakusheneti, HT 104-1-2, as a feminized Hurrian personal name. The qualification feminized is here very unlikely because Hurrian Shena means brother and Shani from Shena-ni means the brother. Hurrian ni is the so-called singular definite article or individualizing suffix. Hurrian Shena, brother, is, according to Ilse Wegner, Introduction to the Hurrian Language, an A-stem that belongs to a group of words expressing kinship, like Ela, sister, Nira, mother, Shala, daughter, Mena, twin. I prefer normalization of the Linear A name Daku Shene to the Hurrian sentence name Daku Shene, that can be analyzed as Daku Shena Ne. The name can be translated as he, she, a god, made the brother beautiful, or make the brother beautiful, O God. The meaning brother is confirmed by comparison with Sumerian shesh and Akkadian Achum. Nutsi offers the longest list of sentence names with this onomastic element, but it also occurs abundantly elsewhere. Linear A Daku Sheneti, HT 104.1-2 from Ayatriada, is probably an extended form of Daku Shene, HT 103.2 and HT 103.4-5. As a result of recent research, it has become clear that the endings ta and ti in Hurrian one-word personal names that contain an initial verbal element represent the enclitic personal pronoun first person singular functioning as subject of the intransitive and as object of the transitive verb. Incidentally, it is possible, and seems even likely, that we have to read Daku Shene Ti, HT 103.2-3, instead of Daku Shene, HT 103.2, because a part of the left edge of the tablet is missing at the beginning of line 3. This missing part could easily have contained sign T, as in Daku Shene Ti on the other tablet, HT 104.1-2. It seems more likely that two different names, Daku Shene Ti, HT 103.2-3, and Daku Shene, HT 103.4-5, are mentioned on tablet HT 103, then that Daku Shene is mentioned twice on the same tablet. It is a bit exceptional that linear AT in Daku Shene Ti occurs in a so-called sentence name, of which Daku may well be the verbal element, Shene the nominal, and Ti the pronominal element. Analysis of Daku Shene Ti as a sentence name with a double object seems possible. Daku Shena Ne Ti, make me, the brother, beautiful, O God. That becomes, make me a beautiful brother, O God. A sentence name with a double case, subject and object, is also conceivable. The deceased brother made me beautiful, or imperative, make me beautiful, O deceased brother. In the latter cases, the name of the newborn baby is a so-called replacement name. The deceased brother is supposed to generate a sort of divine strength to give the newborn son a good start in life. Such a name may be called a quasi-theophorus sentence name. Already a long time ago, after the decipherment of the alphabetic cuneiform script of Ugarit, Hurritologists found evidence for voicelessness of initial consonants in the Hurrian alphabetic cuneiform texts, even in case the same onomastic element had a voiced initial consonant if it appeared as second element in a personal name. Their conclusion was that this observation could also be applied to all other Hurrian texts that were written with syllabic cuneiform. This approach seemed to solve the problem of the ambiguity of voicing or lack of voicing of initial consonants due to the orthographic conventions of syllabic cuneiform, in which voicelessness of consonants in medial position was indicated by double writing and voicing by single writing. In syllabic cuneiform, double T, but also double D, in medial position indicated a voiceless T, and single T and single D in medial position indicated a voiced D. Since initial double writing was impossible at the beginning of a syllabic word or name, initial consonants were by definition ambiguous. Scholars started to believe so strongly in the theory of alleged voicelessness of initial consonants in Hurrian that it almost became a dogma. However, the decipherment of the idiom of Minoan Linear A as a Hurrian dialect has thrown a different light on the alleged voicelessness of initial consonants in Hurrian. Linear A and Linear B have separate series of the same syllabic signs for the voiceless and voiced dental stops. So, Linear A and B have separate series for da, de, di, do, do, and for ta, te, ti, do, tu. Now, Minoan Linear A has plenty of evidence for formations starting with voiced D that are definitely Hurrian. So the conclusions regarding the alleged voicelessness of initial consonants in Hurrian have been too rigorous and are at any rate not confirmed by the Minoan Hurrian evidence of the Linear A texts. My conclusion is that the theory of voicelessness of initial stops in Hurrian should only be applied to the Hurrian dialect of the region of Ugarit and only to the specific period in which the alphabetic cuneiform texts were written. It cannot be applied straight away to other Hurrian dialects and other periods in regions where syllabic cuneiform was the only source. And keep in mind, Hurrian syllabic cuneiform goes back to the 3rd millennium BC and flourished until at least 1200 BC. It may have lingered on longer in some pockets in the Near East and Anatolia. In the 1st millennium BC, Urartian, the cognate language of the kingdom of Urartu in the area of Lake Van, is attested between circa 900 and 700 BC. The evidence from Ugarit may have been exceptional and not representative for the whole area where Hurrian was spoken and written. A useful parallel from another group of languages may be the voiceless initial T in High German, where other Germanic languages like English and Dutch use a voiced D. For instance, High German Tod is Dutch dood, is English death. It is worth noting that the two names following Daku Seneti on HT 104 from Ayatriada contain an identical final morpheme T, T in cuneiform, with voiceless dental T. Idu T, HT 104 223, can be analyzed as Old Hurrian Idu T, consisting of the Hurrian root id, to hit, beat, plus the Old Hurrian theme vowel u, marking the imperative or the past indicative, plus the optional allomorphic enclitic personal pronoun first person singular t, me, translation hit me, O God, or he, she, a god, hit me. Then follows Padasuti, HT 104, 3-4, analyzed as Old Hurrian Pandas Uti, consisting of the Hurrian root pand or want, to make good, just, plus intensifying root extension ash, plus Old Hurrian theme vowel u, marking the transitive imperative or the past indicative, plus the optional allomorphic enclitic personal pronoun first person singular t, me. Make me just, good, O God, or he, she, a god, made me just, good. After our excursus to some Linear A personal names with the Hurrian nominal root dak, beautiful, and verbal root dak, to be beautiful and to make beautiful, it is time to return to our discussion on the analyzed structure and completion of Linear A text IOZA2 from Mount Juchtas, of which we have analyzed and translated the first 3 sequences in episode 2 of this series. Line 1. Ataiovaya, Yadi Kitu, from Yadi Da Kitu, Yasasarame. Analysis Ataiovayas, Ya Asdi Dakitu, Ya Arsasarame. Our father, as well as the woman, is a beauty, as well as the young man, he is like the king of gods. The 3 poetic epithets in the absolutive vocative describing Teshub, Hebat, and Sharruma. Then follows una kanasi, ipi nama. Analysis una chanasi or unar chanasi, ibi nama or ipi nama, come childhood, come childbirth, or bring childhood, childbirth, and let it come rapidly. Line 2, sirute or silute, tanarate, utinu, ida. Let's for a moment focus on the village of Archanes, that lies in the foothills of Mount Juchtas and that has an almost uninterrupted history from Minoan times to modern times. Yannis and Evi Sakalarakis excavated a Minoan villa in the village of Epano Archanes, where they also found 7 Linear A clay tablets. I noticed that a little fragment with Linear A sign A that Louis Godard and Jean-Pierre Olivier, Recueil des Inscriptions en Linear A, Collection of Linear A Inscriptions, Volume 3, Gorilla 3, Paris 1976, assigned to the left top corner of tablet AK1B from Archanes, doesn't touch the other parts of that tablet. It is also good to realize that Linear A tablets AK1 and AK3 have, according to Godard and Olivier, been inscribed by the same scribe. So I have joined that fragment of AK1b to the top left corner of tablet AK3a. As a result, the Linear A toponym AKne, AK1b plus AK3a, appeared. That can no doubt be read as Archane, since an R preceding an occlusive is, according to the orthographic conventions of Linear A and B, not expressed in consonant clusters. Since the Linear A tablets mainly yield lists of Hurrian personal names, and since Hurrian toponyms often show the same type of formations as Hurrian anthroponyms, Akane can be explained as Hurrian Archane, which means give a child, O God. The toponym can be analyzed as the Hurrian athematic imperative ar, give, plus the absolutive chane, chani, child, marking the object of the transitive verb. The final S of Archanes can probably be ascribed to the post-Minoan period of the village. The peak sanctuary of Juchtas and other peak sanctuaries offer many libation tables with the sequence una kanasi, that can be explained as the Hurrian imperative come childhood, childbirth. It may consist of una come plus chanashi, childhood, childbirth, from chane, chani, child, and the verbal root chan, to give birth to, plus the suffix ashe, forming abstracts, compare alashe, ladyship, state of the queen, from alai, lady, queen, sarashe, kingship, from shari, king of gods. Theoretically, una, consisting of the root un, to come, plus the marker of intransitivity a, could also represent the indicative third-person singular, but the context with the descriptive epithets of the three gods in the absolutive vocative at the beginning of the inscriptions shows that the imperative una is most likely. The following Linear A sequence ipi na ma, IOZA 21, and elsewhere, can now be analyzed as ib or ip, transitive to let come rapidly. Mark that the intransitive root means to come rapidly, plus the marker of transitivity I, plus the enclitic personal pronoun third person singular na, indicating the object of the transitive verb him, her, it, plus the syntactical particle ma, man, man, and but. The two correlating sequences una kanasi and ipina ma always occur together in the same order: come childbirth and let it, namely childbirth, come rapidly. Indeed, the intransitive meaning to come of the root un, plus the marker of intransitivity a, was one of the first to be identified in Hurrian studies. But more recently, the transitive meaning of un, to bring, plus marker of transitivity I, or Old Hurrian u, has also been recognized. Moreover, the existence of many root extensions has become clear as well, especially thanks to the Hurrian Hittite bilingual Kirense, Liberation, Manumission of Slaves, KBO 32. The exact meaning of some of these root extensions is not always easy to grasp. The variant orthography Unaru in Unaru Kanayasi and Unaru Kanati from Mount Petrovas, instead of Una in Unakanasi at Kofinas, Petrovas, Simivianu and Trullos, can be explained by the usage of the verbal root extensions al or ar, plus the Old Hurrian transitive theme vowel u, here marking the imperative of transitive un, to bring forth. Analysis unalu chana yasi or unarhu chana yasi. Bring childhood, childbirth forth. Another analysis with two consecutive root extensions is also possible. If the verbal root extension al or ar is followed by a second root extension al ul, see Ilse Wegner, Introduction. The meaning of al is not clear. Ar expresses a factative or iterative aspect, and al ul may be reflexive. According to the orthographic conventions of Linear A and B, the L of al ul is not expressed preceding an occlusive in consonant clusters. Unul is attested at Bogatskö, for instance, Unuuli es. An intransitive interpretation of Unakanasi is still possible, but since the following verbal form ipinama is transitive, and since the connective man connects both forms, an athematic transitive analysis of Linear A Unakanasi as Unal Chanasi or Unar Chanasi, bring childbirth, bring childhood forth, is, in my view, now more likely. As a result, the sequences Unakanasi, Ipinama can now better be analyzed as Unal Chanasi or Unar Chanasi, Ibi Nama or Ibi Naman. Bring childhood, childbirth, and let it come rapidly. The meaning of Hurrian sentence names and so-called one-word names often points to the parent's wish for a favorable childbirth, which was a serious matter because the birth of a child often ended with the death of that child and sometimes the death of the mother as well. Logically, the prayers written on libation tables show an extraordinary concern of the parents and priests for the birth of healthy children. Even the bodies and heads of the expected children are sometimes mentioned explicitly, as we have observed in the second episode. Therefore, it seems not an odd suggestion that the villa of Epanu Archanes may well have been the starting point for the parents and priests to walk up to the peak sanctuary of Juchtas and possibly to the shrine of Anemospilia, Caves of the Winds, as well. So the meaning of the name Archane, give a child, is indeed very significant. Linear A Sirute or Silute, Juchtas, Petrovas, Kovinas and elsewhere, can at first sight be identified as the Hurrian personal name Silute, that may well be a hypochoristic of the well-known Hurrian name Silva Tešub, written Silva Tešub. occurring at Nutsi in a list of at least 16 persons bearing that name. At the 30th Rencontre Assyriologique 1983 at Leiden, Gernot Wilhelm gave an interesting paper on problems of reconstruction of an undated and incomplete economic archive, the archive of Silva Teshub from Nutsi, originally in German. This archive contains about 600 tablets with various groups of texts, such as lists with rations for distribution of oil and wool, monthly and annual rations of barley for slaves, texts concerning husbandry, production of textiles, protocols for trials, etc. The name C.E. Lu occurs at Bogatskeu, but there is also a C.E. Lu, father of Tauuche, at Nutsi, as well as a Siluya and a Silvaya, son of Echlia, with the hypochoristic suffix ya. P.M. Peirce Nutsi personal names equates Silu with Silva. Actually, the variant Hurrian orthography of Siluya and Silvaya at Nutsi, apparently indicating the same person, since the names are mentioned as those of the sons of the same father, may also help to understand the variant Linear A orthography of Ya Ta Iyo Uya at Apodulu as compared to Ata Iyo Vaya elsewhere. So Linear A Sirute or Silute may indeed, at first sight, be equated with the Hurrian personal name Silute, equivalent to Silvate. However, in the libation formula, it may well have a meaning similar to that of the personal name, Silva Teshub, but it is not a personal name itself. Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, offers sub-Hurrian sel and sil the intransitive meaning to be pleasant, good, corresponding with Urartian silua, to be kind, benevolent, benign, and the transitive meaning to treat in a kind way. Correspondence of Hurrian silu with Hurrian silva in personal names, especially in combination with te and teshub, and with Urartian silua, has convinced me that Linear A silute probably represents a Hurrian proverbial expression at the close of the prayer. The libation formula turns out to be a prayer addressing Teshub as Atayovaya, our Father, in his role of Eniatani, God the Father, and closing off with Teshub is kind, benevolent, or rather be beneficent, O Teshub, or transitively, treat us with benignity, O Teshub, which is semantically close to Kyrie eleison, have pity, O Lord, in prayers for God's pity and mercy, and close to Erbarme dich, have mercy, in Johann Sebastian Bach's St. Matthew's Passion. Many libation formulas end with silute. That is indeed one of the most frequent sequences in Linear A. Since silute itself is nearly always preceded by una kanasi ipinama, the three sequences appear to constitute a proverbial formula on these libation tables. In IOZA2 from Juchtas, silute is the first sequence of line 2. This line 2 is the lower line on the libation table, written with smaller syllabic signs than those of the sequences of line 1. Surprisingly, if we compare the way how Minoan words and names are spelled all over Crete, the degree of uniformity of orthography is remarkably high. Still, it seems unlikely that there was any official or standard orthography prescribed by a central authority, for every region probably had its own palace, villa, or settlement, often even with its own peak sanctuary. Sentence names usually consist of two elements, either two nominal elements or a verbal and a nominal element. That may well be the reason why also in the religious texts epithets such as Astidagiti and Arsa Sarame and their variants contain two nominal elements, but also expressions in context such as una ganassi or unar ganassi and silute consist of a verbal and a nominal element. We shall see that the scribe or scribes who inscribed the libation tables from Mount Juchtas had the habit to combine even more notions in one sequence than their colleagues from other peak sanctuaries have done. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Linear A inscriptions on 5 libation tables from Mount Juchtas, IOZA2, IOZA3, IOZA5, IOZA6, and IOZA7 show features of hieroglyphic or pictographic writing. For instance, syllabic sign A clearly shows the image of a double X and hasn't yet got its stylized form. Editors such as Louis Godard and Jean-Pierre Olivier, Gorilla 5, 1985, and Jacques Raison and Maurice Pope, 1994, read a very long sequence ta na ra te uti nu after silute. Although there is no word divider visible between ta na ra te and uti nu, there are a few reasons why it seems justifiable to separate uti nu from ta na ra te. 1. I know no other Linear A sequence with the consecutive syllabic signs E and U. 2. The scribes from Mount Juchtas have been fond of combining terms in one sequence. 3. The sequence uti nu occurs not only in Linear A ta na ra te uti nu, IOZA 2 A to B 2, but also in ta na I yo uti nu, word divider I na ta I do di si ka yasa sarame, IOZA 6, which contains more sequences consisting of several elements. It also occurs in the Bustrophedon inscription IOZA 11 that reads, line 1, left to right, na pi da da, equals probably u na pi da da. Line 2, right to left, uti nu I na I dami. The term Bustrophedon means as an oxen ploughs the field. Of these, uti nu I na I dami, IOZA 11.2, offers a clear analysis, ustinu, consisting of the Hurrian verbal root ust, to bring out, forth, plus the marker of transitivity I, plus the optional allomorphic enclitic personal pronoun nu, instead of na, ni, him, her, it. That can be interpreted as bring it, namely the child, out, or bring it, childbirth, forth. If one prefers to use an abstract notion in the prayer. Linear A utinu can be analyzed as Hurrian ustinu, because an S preceding an occlusive is not expressed in linear A and B consonant clusters. Then follows ina idami, that can be separated into two sequences, ina or ena, from eni or ini plus na, consisting of eni ini God, plus the suffix of the plural definite article na, and idami, analysis ida mi or ida vi. Mount ida plus the genitive suffix bi, vi, mi. O gods of Ida. It is conceivable that utinu on IOZA 11 points back to a lost phrase like una kanasi, come childbirth, childhood, or bring childbirth, childhood, forth, as in ata Iovaya, yadikitu, yasasarame, una kanasi, ipinama, IOZA 2:1. And that Ina points back to the Holy Trinity of Teshub, Hebat, and Sharruma, ata Iovaya, yadikitu, yasasarame, who are here called gods of Ida, with the genitive suffix mi instead of we. The transliterated text of Linear A inscription SYZA1 on a round serpentine libation table from the peak sanctuary of Simivianu is ata Iovaya, vertifider, idami, vertifider, ya, gap. The sign following the first sign of the third sequence ya is a small vertical stroke compatible with sign di or sa, so we can complete the third sequence to either ya di daki te or ya sasarame. The whole inscription can be translated as Our Father, God of Ida, as well as the woman is a beauty, that becomes the most beautiful woman, or as well as the young boy, he is like the king of gods. The inscription was found with more libation tables and a tube face on the site of Crea Frisi, ice cold well, building U, room 5. It can be dated from Middle Minoan 3b to Late Minoan 1a. For us, it's significant that Linear A idami, SYZA1, is certainly attested as a separate sequence on the libation table from Simivianu, because it is preceded and followed by clear word dividers. This makes it indeed justifiable to separate ina from idami in Linear A utinu, word divider ina idami, word divider gap. IOZA 11, line 2. From Mount Juchtas, read from right to left. It is indeed remarkable how many sequences in these 3 inscriptions are written without word dividers, even sharing one syllabic sign, for instance P in Na Pi Da Da. IOZA 11.1 that I propose to complete to Una Pi Da Da and analyze as Unap Ida Da or Ida Dan, consisting of the root un to come, plus the marker of intransitivity a, plus the old Hurrian marker of the subject of action third person singular b, plus the oronym ida, plus Hurrian directive suffix da, to, comparable with Greek idande, accusative of ida plus the directive suffix de, or Hurrian ablative suffix dan, from, since final consonants are not expressed in linear A and B. It is comparable with Greek ida ten from ida ten. The translation is he, she, perhaps the supplicant, comes or came to ida, or he, she, a god or priest, comes or came from ida. It has to be emphasized that verbal formations with the old Hurrian marker of the subject of action third person singular b, known from the Hurrian Hittite bilingual Kirense KBO 32, yield such typically Hurrian grammatical evidence that even the most stubborn skeptic would have to admit that these expressions cannot be anything else but Hurrian. The advantage of connecting unap, ida dan, into one sequence, una pi da da, was that the scribe was able to express the labial occlusive b of unap, he, she, comes or came, which would have been impossible if he had chosen to separate the verbal and nominal forms. Linear A, ida da, also occurs as a separate sequence on a perforated sealstone or of black-green steatite in the form of a bobbin, donated by R.B. Seeger to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Probably from Crete. The exact provenance is uncertain. It bears linear A inscription KTZG2 that reads Terowa, as read from the sealstone, but Arote on the seal impression. Da-da-I, as read from the sealstone, but I-da-da on the seal impression. The scribe of the seal no doubt knew which of the two suffixes he meant, da or dan, but we can only choose which is meant if arote, KTZG2A, offers a useful indication. Since linear A syllabic sign 22 can be lo or ro, since ra la re le, ri li, ro lo, ru lu are not distinguished in the scripts of linear A and B, several interpretations of arote, KTZG2A, are feasible. In the printed and e-book editions of the Decipherment of Minoan Linear A, all possible interpretations are discussed, but in this lecture I stick to the interpretations that I consider most likely. A-rho-te can at first sight be identified with the Hurrian personal name Alute. The Hurrian personal name Aluteia, written Aluteia, is attested at Nutsi. Since Thea and Te are both very common hypochoristic forms of Teshub in Hurrian Theophorus sentence names, Alute is equivalent to Aluteia. Phonologically, it is probably Alote. According to Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, the verbal root al means to rule. Compare Urartian alai and alushe, ruler, and the Urartian root al, to be lord, to rule. Compare also Hurrian alai, lady, mistress, or queen. If this verbal root is chosen, the whole phrase A-rho-te I-da-da, kt set g 2 a to b, can be analyzed as alote I-da-dan, and can be rendered as the Old Hurrian imperative rule from Mount Ida, O Teshub, or as the Old Hurrian past indicative Teshub ruled and rules from Ida, which would be the Old Hurrian version of Homeric Ida ten Medeon, ruling from Ida, in Iliad Gamma 276, where Agamemnon prays to Father Zeus using the same epic formula as Priam does in Iliad Omega 308. Zeu pater ide ten medeon cudiste megiste, Father Zeus, that rulest from Ida, most glorious, most great. Note that Zeus is called Father in the divine sense by Agamemnon and Priam, just like Tushratta calls Teshub our Father in the Tushratta letter, column 4, line 118. Since M, preceding an occlusive, is not expressed in consonant clusters in linear A and B, analysis of A-rho-te as alom-te is also feasible. It consists of the root al plus the marker of the Old Hurrian past tense with durative aspect o, plus the Old Hurrian marker of the subject third person singular m, he, and the hypochoristic Theophorus element te, Teshub he ruled and rules from Ida. Since here there is no object mentioned, we may conclude that the verb is used as an antipassive. In my view, a closer parallel between the Hurrian ablative suffix dan and the Greek separative suffix ten can hardly be found. I even consider it possible that, thanks to strong Minoan influence on Mycenaean society, Mycenaean Greek may well have derived the suffix ten from the Minoan Hurrian ablative suffix dan. Likewise, it is likely that the Mycenaean Greek directive suffix de is derived from the Minoan Hurrian directive suffix da. The double parallels make accidental correspondence less likely. It may seem odd that an Indo-European language may have derived such a grammatical feature from an agglutinative language. But miracles have also happened vice versa. For instance, the former city of Constantine, Constantinopolis, is now called Istanbul, which is not a Turkish name. It is derived from Greek eis ten polin, to the city. Moreover, suffixes such as de and ten are basically anomalous to an inflectional language such as Greek, and were largely replaced by prepositions. But they are characteristic for an agglutinative language such as Hurrian. We return to Mount Juchtas. Isolation of Utinu, IOZA 11.2, justifies separation of Tanarate, analysis Tanarante, from Tanarate Utinu, IOZA 2.2, and of Tanaio from Tanaio Utinu, IOZA 6. Since Tanarate directly follows the well-known sequence Sirute, Silute, be benevolent, O Teshub, or treat us kindly, O Teshub, it is justifiable to analyze Tanarate, IOZA 2.2, as Tanarante, practice witchcraft, magic, work charms, again and again, O Teshub. Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, sub tan, tin, ugarit, to make, do, and tanan, bokatskale, to cause or practice witchcraft, magic, to work charms. I now say, as compared to tanan at Ratusha, Linear A tanaran contains not only the causative root extension an, but also the factative and iterative root extension ar. See Ilse Wegener Introduction. The Linear A personal name Tanate, ZA10A1, from Katutsakro, can reflect Tanan te, or, in fact, Tanan Teshub. Practice magic, witchcraft, work charms, O Teshub. If Tana-iyo is separated from Tana-iyo Utinu, IOZA 6, and analyzed as the final dabative, second person singular, Tanai-yu, you may create, in order that you create, Ilse Wegener Introduction, the addressed God follows immediately after Utinu in the vocative. Inatai, separated from Dodi Sika, is Eni, Ini, Atai, God, Father, or Inata, separated from Ido di Sika, both Inata, Eni Inata, and Inatai, Eni Inatai, make sense, since Hurrian Atta, Father, can be written with or without honorific I. Either designation can be no other god than Eni Atani, God the Father, in other inscriptions addressed as Atayovaya, our Father. Linear A Inatai or Inata, IOZA 6, is written as one notion because the N of Eni, Ini, God, is part of syllabic sign na. By joining ini a ta I to one notion ina ta I, or ini a ta to one notion ina ta, the scribe had the advantage that he had to inscribe one syllabic sign less. The obvious question for us is which sequence makes sense as well, Ido dck or Do dck? I think that the first option offers the best meaning, since Ido dck can be analyzed as Hurrian id ud ick, consisting of the verbal root id, to hit, strike violently, plus the Old Hurrian negation suffix ud, known from the Hurrian Hittite bilingual Quirense, see Ilse Wegner introduction, plus theme vowel I, plus the noun shika, a wooden peg, stick. See Thomas Richter Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, sub gish, sika, bokatschke, an object or instrument, possibly corresponding with Hittite gish gak sa, gish tarma sa, a wooden peg, stick, or hu impa, perhaps belonging to the Hurrian Akkadian shigu, nutsi. See Dijkstra 2005, page 319. The scribe connected id ud I sika with inata, eni ata, God the Father, and the term sika may refer to Teshub's thunderbolt. God the Father, do not strike your thunderbolt, or possibly your magic wand. The following sequence, Yasa Sarame, IOZA 6, Ya Arsa Sarame, that means as well as the young lad, he is like the king of gods, probably introduces a prayer request to Sharruma that is unfortunately lost in this inscription. We have discussed the Hurrian transitive root ust, to bring out, to bring forth, in Linear A utinu, that equals Hurrian ustinu, and the intransitive root ust, to go out to the battlefield, for instance. However, there's also a nominal form, ustai, war hero, with honorific suffix I, that is probably derived from intransitive ust, to go out to the battlefield. This nominal form occurs in an oblique case in Linear A, utaise, kh 7b 2, and utaisi, kh 16-2 at Chania. It can be analyzed as ustai ash ve vi, from ustai ash ve vi, of the war heroes. Plural genitive of Hurrian ustai, with pluralizer ash plus genitive suffix ve vi. Corroboration for the identification utaise, kh 7b2, of the war heroes comes from Linear A enasi, kh 7a2, as Hurrian enashe, of the gods, on the A side of the same tablet. The Hurrian plural genitive form enasi, enashe, of the gods, is attested at Hattusha, bogatskeu, as en na ashi, and en na ashe. The linear A rendering of the Hurrian form ustaische as utaische is the result of linear A orthographic conventions that are inherited by linear B as well. The meaning of Hurrian ustai was established by Rashamra, quadrilingual 137-24, Sumerian shul is Akkadian etlu, is Hurrian ushta ani, is Ugaritic machurum. John Hunnergaard reads the Ugaritic sequence as Bacharu or Bacharu, youth. Thomas Richter reads Bacharu, war hero. We may wonder what the actual function or meaning of expressions like Tanarate, IOZA22, practice witchcraft, magic, work charms, again and again, O Teshub, and of Tanaiyo, IOZA6, you may create, may have been. Teshub is directly addressed in Tanarante. In Tanai you may create, he is addressed in his role of Ini Eni Ata. In cuneiform, usually in the extended form Eni Atani, God the Father. So both expressions refer to Teshub. In other words, what is the parent's or priest's request to Teshub? What is he supposed to accomplish with his magic, witchcraft, or charms? And what will he create? The answer may be found in the Linear A inscription TLZA1, incised on the edge of a triangular white marble ladle, HM 1545, found at Trullos in the outskirts of Arganes, northeast of the village. TLZA1 A. Ata Iovaya Osukare, which is Osukare. B. Yasa Sarame Una Kanasi. C. Ipinama Sirute. All sequences of the inscription from Trullos, except Osukware is Osuchare, have been discussed, because they also occur in many other inscriptions. It is the first time that I discuss Linear A Osuchare, since I have only recently identified its meaning. It hasn't yet been mentioned in the printed and e-book editions of the Decipherment of Minoan Linear A. As mentioned before, already in 1980, at the very beginning of my linguistic research on Minoan Linear A, as soon as I had found evidence that the idiom written with Linear A might well be Hurrian, I realized that the Linear A graphic counterparts of the Linear B signs qua and que couldn't contain the labiovelar sounds required for Mycenaean Greek, because Hurrian doesn't have labiovelar sounds, but it has voiced and voiceless velar fricatives. My assumption that the Linear B scribes used Linear A signs for the voiced velar fricatives, for Linear B signs with labiovelar sounds, was confirmed by more and more positive identifications. The Linear A confirmations started with my recognition of the Hurrian adjectival and ethnic suffix ch, equivalent to chi, with single writing in syllabic cuneiform, and ch in the alphabetic cuneiform of Ugarit, containing this voiced velar fricative. Equation of linear B sign qua with linear A sign cha also offered many confirmatory matches. My later identification of the not yet deciphered linear A sign 96 and its more simple variant 68 as Hurrian chi was confirmed by many examples, especially again with many forms containing the adjectival and ethnic suffix chi. The very interesting results will be discussed in another episode. It is known that the phonemes O and U alternate very often in Hurrian, which makes it likely that the O was a close sound. So it is significant that we encounter the same phenomenon in Minoan Linear A. For instance, in the Linear A personal names Amidao, HT 170A 5, probably from Hayatriada, and Amidau, ZA 10A 3, from Katutsakro, that can both be interpreted as Hurrian one-word names, which I shall discuss in another episode. Thanks to these well-attested alternations, it is justifiable to analyze Linear A Osuchare as Hurrian Unsuchare or Unsuchare, from Unsuchar ne, with the so-called definite article or individualizing suffix ne ni, probably consisting of the athematic imperative of the transitive root un, to bring, compare intransitive to come, plus Minoan Hurrian suchare life, or suchare the life, equivalent to Hurrian suchuri, Bokaskale, Emar, Tikunani, Ugarit. The variants suchare, suchari, suchuri, life, and suchare, suchari, suchure, the life, may well be a matter of vowel harmony. Frederick W. Bush, 1973, read the possessive form first person plural segar ni I va as in the Tushratta letter, column 4, line 116, that he translated as our fate. A problem is that the cuneiform sign for gar is the same as for gur. Emmanuel Laroche, Glossaire de la langue Ourite, Glossary of the Hurrian language, mentions sub suchuri, vi, life, an equation of Hurrian su-hu ur ni with Ugaritic ge ya ma in the quadrilingual Rashambra 131-6, and of Sumerian be equals Akkadian balatu equals Hurrian suchuri equals Ugaritic Cheyama in the quadrilingual Rashambra 137-120. He also mentioned correspondence with Urartian Segeri vivant, living. See also Mirio Salvini and Ilse Wegner, Introduction to the Urartian Language. Segeri, living, but Laroche still refrained from connecting Sughurni, life, from Seghurni, that he labelled meaning unknown, although he mentioned the meaning fate proposed by Gutze. Ilse Wegner, Introduction to the Hurrian Language, translates Seghurni as life. Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, mentions sub Segiri, Segerni, Seghurni, Bokatskale, Ugarit, Tushratta letter, the meaning fate in the older and life in the more recent literature. According to Marie-Claude Trémouille, Ħebat, une divinité syro-anatolienne, Saghur et Bokatskale, written Sa-a-hu-ur, is a variant of Sughur, life. In fact, one may consider the Linear A nominal element Sughare in O Sughare a case of metathesis as compared to Saghur in Bokatskale. It is most interesting that Emmanuel Laroche also mentions Dingir U, storm god, Sughuripi, Teshub de la vie, Teshub of life, at Khatusha, and the variant Sughuribi, Dingir U up, Teshub of life, at Khatusha, which he compares sub alai, dame, reine, lady, queen, with Ali Sughurive, written Dingir Ali I Sughurive, Dame de la vie, Lady of Life, at Emar, modern Mesquene, series MSK AN number 34. Since Alai, lady, and Alani, the lady, are epithets of Hebat, it is clear that both Teshub and his wife Hebat are considered gods who are giving, bringing, or creating life. In the inscription from Trullos, Linear A O Sughare, Hurrian un Sughare, or un Sughare, bring life, is written immediately after Ataiovaya, epithet of Teshub in the vocative. So the prayer, bring life, is here addressed to Teshub. In other prayers probably also to his wife Hebat. Since Una Kanasi, Hurrian Unar Chanasi, bring child birth, directly follows Yasa Sarame, Sharruma may at least in this inscription be the god who is primarily responsible for a successful delivery of the expected child. This inscription provides, again, a strong connection of Minoan Linear A with the Hurrian civilization and religion in the Near East and Anatolia. I have often argued that the main subject of the prayers on the Linear A libation tables is the parent's wish that the mother will bear a healthy child, and that mother and child will stay alive. So it isn't surprising that the same theme recurs in the meaning of many Hurrian personal names. For instance, the Hurrian name Sughur Naya, written Sughur Na-a, wife of Kibia, at Nutsi. See Galp, Nutsi personal names, that I propose to analyze as Suchur Naya, let the girl live, O Naya. It consists of the transitive verbal root such one, to let live, let stay alive, let survive, plus the Old Hurrian root extension ur, see Ilse Wegner, introduction, plus the theonym Naya as the theophorus element in the sentence name. The intransitive meaning is to live. If linear A Suchita, KN22, on a clay bar from Knossos is the correct reading, and if the sequence is complete, we can interpret it as the Hurrian one-word name Suchita, that can be analyzed as Suchita, consisting of the verbal root such one, related to Suchurni, life. See Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, plus the marker of transitivity I, plus enclitic personal pronoun first person singular ta. This seems a plausible meaning for a personal name, which is, in my view, preferable to the root such to renew oneself. Compare suchi, ugarit, new, corresponding with Sumerian gi bil and Akkadian eshu, Beatrice André Salvini and Mirio Salvini, 1998. And also with Urartian suchi, new, see Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, sub such tu, Bokatskale. But the meaning, renew me, is not impossible for Hurrian suchita. One may, in that case, think of replacement of a deceased brother or sister by the new baby, or of the belief in reincarnation and transmigration of souls, as we later find in the mysteries of Orphism and the philosophical school of the Pythagoreans. In the next episode, Lecture 4, I'll continue my interpretation of the Minoan Linear A religious texts. Thank you very much for your attention. If you are interested in more lectures on the decipherment of Minoan Linear A and wish to be notified as soon as a new episode appears on YouTube, you can freely subscribe to the series. If you enjoyed this episode, you are most welcome to give your comments.